Last month, a 2022 330i came into the shop with a destroyed turbo at 41,000 miles. The owner couldn't believe it. He thought he was taking care of it. Oil changes on schedule, no warning lights, no strange noises until it was too late. But when we pulled the turbo apart, the damage told a different story. That turbo wasn't killed by a defect. It was killed by the way he drove every single day. Hey folks, I'm Mike. I've been diagnosing and rebuilding BMW engines for over 20 years, from E46s right through to the latest G series. And after 2 decades, I can tell you one thing for certain. BMWs don't die from mileage. They die from habits. Today we're covering the 7 that cause the most damage. Habit number 7 is the #1 killer of modern BMW turbo engines, and almost nobody talks about it. Habit number 1, cold starting and driving off immediately. This is the habit that starts every single day for most BMW owners, and it's doing damage every time. When a BMW sits overnight, especially in cold weather, the oil settles to the bottom of the sump. It's thick, it's cold, and it hasn't reached anything yet. That means for the first few seconds after startup, the turbo bearings, the Vanos solenoids, the valve train, the high-pressure fuel pump, all of them are spinning and moving with almost no lubrication, metal on metal. And if you start the car and immediately pull away, you're asking those components to work hard before the oil has even had a chance to reach them. BMW engines are particularly vulnerable to this because of how tightly they're engineered. The tolerances inside something like a B58 turbo are measured in thousandths of a millimeter. There is zero margin for oil starvation. Even a few seconds of dry contact at high RPM causes wear that adds up over hundreds of cold starts. One owner brought in a 2018 340i with a turbo that sounded like it was full of gravel. Just 65,000 miles on the clock. Turned out he used remote start every morning, jumped in 10 seconds later, and drove straight onto the highway. When we pulled the turbo apart, the bearings were scored to pieces. That's a repair north of $2,000. And it wasn't a BMW defect, it was a habit. The correct approach is simple. Start the engine, wait 30 to 45 seconds, then drive gently, keeping the revs low until the oil temperature starts climbing. Save the spirited driving for when the engine is properly warmed up. That small change alone can add years to the life of the turbo and valve train. Habit number 2, short trip driving without regular highway runs. A 2017 X5 came into the shop running rough with misfires at just 48,000 miles. The owner did everything right on paper. Oil changes on time, gentle driving, never abused it. But he lived 2 miles from work. 5 days a week, start, drive, park, repeat. When we pulled the intake manifold and walnut blasted the valves, the carbon deposits were so thick they were restricting airflow by nearly 40%. The intake looked like the inside of a chimney. That cleanup plus diagnosis ran him over $800, and it'll need doing again if the driving pattern doesn't change. Here's why short trips are so destructive. BMW engines, especially turbocharged ones, are designed to run at full operating temperature. A 5 to 10 minute drive never gets them there. The oil stays thick and doesn't circulate efficiently. Combustion stays cool, which produces excess moisture and fuel vapor that contaminate the oil. Over weeks and months, that contamination turns into sludge inside the engine. On top of that, BMWs with direct injection are particularly vulnerable. The fuel injectors spray directly into the combustion chamber, which means the intake valves never get washed with fuel the way they do in a port injection engine. On short trips where the engine never reaches full temperature, carbon deposits build up on those valves far more quickly. This is the infamous carbon buildup issue that plagues the N54, N55, and even the B58 to a lesser degree. I've seen it cause rough idle, misfires, power loss, and check engine lights on cars with surprisingly low mileage. If a BMW is mainly used for short trips, it needs at least one 25 to 30-minute highway drive per week. Keep the revs around 2,500 to 3,500 and let the engine reach full operating temperature. Let everything heat up properly, the oil, the exhaust, the catalytic converters. Think of it as essential maintenance, not optional. Habit number 3, lugging the engine under load. A lot of drivers believe that keeping the revs low means they're being kind to the engine. In a BMW, it's one of the fastest ways to cause serious internal damage. Lugging happens when the engine is under load at low RPM. Accelerating in too high a gear, climbing a hill at 1,200 RPM, merging onto a highway in 6th gear. The engine feels like it's struggling because it is. Cylinder pressures spike well beyond what the engine is designed to handle at those speeds. Oil pressure drops because the pump isn't spinning fast enough. And in turbo BMWs, the turbo is being forced to build boost at RPM levels where the engine can't efficiently use it, which dumps excessive heat into the exhaust manifold and turbo housing. Over time, this accelerates wear on turbo seals, wastegate actuators, and most critically, rod bearings. The infamous rod bearing failures on the S65 V8 in E90M3s and the S63 twin-turbo V8 in the X5M and X6M are often linked to habitual lugging. But this isn't just an M-car problem. I've seen it on 328is, 528is, X3s. Any BMW that gets consistently lugged under load is at risk. A 2016 535. I came through the shop with a bottom-end knock at 94,000 miles. The owner commuted through hilly terrain every day and admitted he never downshifted. He let the car pull at 1,100 to 1,300 RPM going uphill because he thought it was saving fuel. When we dropped the oil pan, the rod-bearing shells were worn through to the copper layer. That's an engine-out repair. He was looking at north of $6,000 to make it right. The correct habit is to keep the engine in the 1,800 to 3,000 RPM range under normal driving. If the engine feels like it's laboring, downshift. Let it rev into its power band before shifting up. BMWs are engineered to rev. The engine management system, the turbo mapping, the fueling, all of it is optimized for a specific operating range. Let the engine work where it's designed to. Habit number 4, excessive idling. This one catches a lot of BMW owners off guard because idling feels like the gentlest thing you can do to an engine. It's the opposite. At idle, a BMW engine is turning at its lowest RPM. That means the oil pump is producing minimum pressure and minimum flow. In engines like the N20 and B48 Turbo 4s, the turbo oil feed line is already narrow by design. At idle, the flow through that line drops to a trickle. The turbo is still hot from the last drive, but it's barely getting any oil to cool the bearings. Over time, the residual heat carbonizes the oil trapped inside the bearing housing. That's the beginning of oil coking, and once it starts, it gradually destroys the turbo from the inside out. But the turbo isn't the only thing suffering. At idle, combustion temperatures are too low for a complete burn. Unburnt fuel slips past the piston rings and ends up in the oil. This is fuel dilution, and it's measurable. I've sent oil samples to the lab from BMWs with high idle time, and the fuel contamination levels come back well outside the acceptable range. That oil looks normal on the dipstick, but it's lost a significant chunk of its ability to actually protect anything. A guy with a 2019 X5 I used his car for school runs and spent a lot of time sitting in the pickup line with the engine running. 20 to 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. By 55,000 miles, the turbo had developed a noticeable whistle under load, and the oil analysis showed iron levels nearly triple what they should be. The turbo replacement plus an oil system flush ran him close to $3,000. He thought idling was harmless. It was the most expensive habit he had. If the car needs to sit for more than 60 to 90 seconds, switch it off. Modern BMWs have auto start-stop for exactly this reason. Sitting in a parking lot with the engine running is not gentle treatment. It's slow, quiet damage that adds up faster than most people expect. If you're finding this useful, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. We break down BMW maintenance tips every week to help you keep your car running properly without getting stung by avoidable repair bills. Habit number 5, ignoring oil temperature before driving. Most BMW owners know to check coolant temperature. The gauge is right there on the dash. But coolant and oil temperature are two very different things. Coolant reaches operating temperature in about 5 to 7 minutes. Oil takes significantly longer, often 15 to 20 minutes. That means the coolant gauge can look perfectly normal while the oil is still too cold and too thick to properly protect the bearings, turbo, and valve train. Drivers who see the coolant gauge come up and immediately start pushing the car hard are putting enormous stress on under-lubricated components. The best practice is to drive gently for at least 15 minutes before any spirited driving. If the BMW has an oil temperature readout in the cluster or iDrive, use it. Wait until the oil is above 180 degrees Fahrenheit before asking the engine for real performance. Habit number 6, neglecting oil changes or trusting long service intervals. BMW's condition-based service system can recommend oil change intervals of up to 15,000 miles. Many owners follow this because it comes from BMW themselves. But those intervals are too long. Turbocharged BMW engines are extremely hard on oil. The turbo heats it to extreme temperatures. Direct injection introduces fuel contamination, and by 10,000 miles, the protective additives are significantly depleted. By 15,000, the oil is doing far less than the engine needs. I've seen the inside of engines that followed BMW's long life intervals to the letter. Sludge in the valve cover, varnish on the internals, timing chain guides worn well ahead of schedule. Then there are the engines that got fresh synthetic every 5,000 to 7,000 miles. The difference is night and day. For any turbocharged BMW, change the oil at no more than 7,000 miles using a quality full synthetic. For short trip cars, 5,000 is even better. And check the dipstick every 1,000 miles between changes. BMWs consume oil, and running low compounds every other problem on this list. Habit number 7, hot shutdown after hard driving. This is the habit that ties everything together, and it is the #1 killer of BMW turbochargers. This is what I was talking about at the start of the video. After a spirited drive or any period of hard acceleration, the turbo is extremely hot. Exhaust gas temperatures can exceed 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The moment the engine is switched off, oil flow stops instantly. The oil trapped inside the turbo bearing housing starts to carbonize against those superheated surfaces. This is called oil coking. The carbonized oil hardens into an abrasive residue that scores the turbo shaft and bearings. Repeated hot shutdowns and the damage stacks up silently until the turbo fails. By the time you hear the whine, it's already too late. A 2019 M240i came through the shop with a failed turbo at 72,000 miles. The owner drove hard, which is fine, but he always just parked and switched off. Never once let it cool down. Classic coking damage. That's a repair bill north of $2,000 that was completely avoidable. After any hard driving, let the engine idle for 2 to 3 minutes before shutting it off. Some newer BMWs have an after-run coolant pump, but even with that system, a brief idle period provides the best protection. This one habit alone can double the lifespan of a turbo. Here's the bottom line. BMW engines don't fail because of mileage. They fail because of habits. I've seen BMWs hit 200,000 miles with original turbos, clean internals, and strong compression. I've also seen them need major work before 60,000. The difference is almost never the car. It's always how the owner drove it and how they maintained it. None of these fixes are expensive or complicated. They're simple changes to how you drive and how you maintain the engine. That's all it takes. If this helped you out, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Drop a comment with your BMW model and mileage. I love seeing how far these engines go when they're looked after. Next week, we're covering the hidden maintenance items BMW never tells you about that most owners miss until it's too late. You don't want to miss that one. Thanks for watching, folks. Take care of your BMW and it'll take care of you.